I just wanted to film a video that would break the internet. Instead, I got a crowd screaming for my punishment. It started with a lighter and a royal guard's hat, and ended with sirens, handcuffs, and the worst 10 minutes of my life. Let's dive into how it all went down. William, a 27-year-old tourist from Chicago, was living his best life, or at least, that's what he told himself. London was his playground for the week, and today his game plan was simple. Grab some jaw-dropping shots for his YouTube channel. Known for its sharp humor and borderline outrageous pranks, William's channel thrived on chaos. And William? He had that unmistakable, "I'm about to do something dumb for views" look written all over his face. The day started innocently enough. After snagging a few clips of Tower Bridge and cracking jokes about how they don't make castles like this in Chicago, William made his way to Buckingham Palace. By the time he arrived, though, he wasn't just running on caffeine and enthusiasm. A couple of pit stops at local pubs had given him a nice buzz, and let's just say his decision-making skills weren't at their sharpest. That's when he spotted him, the Queen's Guard, standing ramrod straight, dressed in a scarlet jacket and topped with that iconic furry hat that practically screamed, "Don't mess with tradition." William froze. He whispered into his camera, which was already streaming live to his viewers, "Yo, you guys seeing this? Dude hasn't blinked in like a century. Is that even a person? Or just a really expensive mannequin?" The chat blew up instantly. "Bet you won't mess with him. Do something legendary. Only cowards back out now." William chuckled, the kind of laugh that's half nerves, half, "I'm totally gonna regret this." The audience wanted a show, and William? He was all too happy to deliver. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a lighter and flicked it on, watching the tiny flame dance in front of him. With a grin that could only mean trouble, he muttered to his camera, "All right, folks, this one's for you. If I don't make it, tell my mom I died doing something epic." He edged closer to the guard, careful not to attract attention. Though let's be real, a guy sneaking up on the Queen's Guard with a lighter wasn't exactly subtle. A small crowd had started to gather, their phones ready to capture whatever insanity was about to unfold. William was too caught up in the moment to notice. The lighter's flame kissed the bottom edge of the guard's hat. For a split second, nothing happened. Then with terrifying speed, the fur ignited, flames licking upward like they'd been waiting for their cue. William stumbled back, laughing nervously. And then it happened. The guard, who had stood motionless like a statue this whole time, suddenly pivoted toward William. One swift, precise motion sent William sprawling onto the pavement. Before he could even process what had just happened, a piercing siren blared from the guard's wristband, cutting through the air like a knife. The crowd gasped, phones held high, capturing every second. The flames on the hat roared brighter, but the guard stood his ground, unshaken. If anything, he looked more imposing than ever, like a warrior in the middle of battle. William, lying on the ground, looked up at his camera, which was still streaming. He tried to laugh it off. Well, that escalated quickly. Around him, murmurs from the crowd shifted from amused chuckles to tense whispers. Phones captured the surreal scene, the unflinching guard, the smoldering hat, and the tourist who had just gone from prankster to public enemy in record time. Little did William know, this was only the beginning. Before anyone could process what had just gone down, two more guards emerged from the palace. They moved like something straight out of an action movie, synchronized, efficient, and with faces so emotionless, they might as well have been carved out of marble. Without missing a beat, they closed in on their colleague, swiftly removing the flaming hat and smothering the fire with military precision. Meanwhile, William was sprawled out on the cobblestone, still gripping his camera like it was his lifeline. His live stream was running, capturing every second of the chaos. He groaned as he pulled himself to his feet, brushing dirt off his jacket. "Wow," he muttered, blinking in disbelief. "They actually move. Who knew?" His attempt at humor didn't land. The growing crowd that had gathered was anything but amused. People whispered angrily, pointing at him, their phones aimed like weapons. The energy shifted from mild curiosity to outright hostility. A man in his 50s with a face redder than a London phone booth stepped forward. His voice boomed over the murmurs. "Are you serious? Have you lost your mind? Do you even realize what you've done? This is an insult to our history, our traditions." William blinked at him, his lopsided grin faltering. He glanced at his camera, reading the incoming comments. Most of them weren't exactly supportive. "This is so dumb." "Bro, you've crossed the line this time." "Hope you like jail food." Still, he tried to play it cool. Turning back to the crowd, he raised his hands like a performer addressing his audience. "Relax, people. It's just a prank. You guys love a good show, right? That's all this was, a little entertainment." The sarcasm in his tone didn't help. If anything, it made things worse. The crowd pressed in tighter, their faces a mix of anger and disgust. A teenager near the front, barely older than 16, leaned toward him with a warning. "Dude, if I were you, I'd get out of here, like right now." He nodded toward the approaching police officers, their uniforms cutting through the sea of people like a knife. But William wasn't listening. In his mind, he was invincible. The buzz of his growing audience drowned out any sense of reality. He waved at the camera, still streaming, and gave a forced laugh. "Looks like we've got some special guests joining the party." That's when a man from the crowd made his move. He lunged forward, grabbing the front of William's jacket and shaking him violently. "Do you think this is funny?" the man snarled, his voice trembling with rage. "You're disrespecting our country." William stumbled back, nearly dropping his camera. For the first time, genuine panic flickered across his face. "Whoa, calm down, man. It's not that deep," he protested, raising his hands defensively. But the crowd wasn't having it. Voices rose, blending into a chaotic chorus. "Lock him up!" "Disgraceful." "How dare he do this here?" And then, as if on cue, the first police officer arrived. His voice cut through the noise like a whip. "Everyone, step back now!" The crowd parted reluctantly, leaving William standing alone in the center of the circle. He looked at the officer, then back at his camera, still trying to keep up his bravado. But before he could say anything, one of the guards who had helped extinguish the fire pointed directly at him. "That's all on record, sir," the guard said, his voice firm and steady. "He needs to be held accountable." The officer nodded, his expression grim. The weight of the situation finally started to sink in for William. He glanced around nervously as the crowd began to chant, louder and louder, "Punish him! Punish him!" For the first time, his usual confidence wavered. The camera in his hand felt heavier than ever, the red recording light blinking like a beacon of his impending doom. It didn't even take 10 minutes. That was all it took for William to go from the grinning star of his own viral live stream to a guy in handcuffs being guided toward the backseat of a patrol car. 10 minutes. Barely enough time to grab a coffee or scroll through your phone. And yet here he was, surrounded by a cheering crowd with their cameras aimed like laser pointers, documenting every humiliating second. For a guy who lived for attention, this wasn't exactly the audience William had in mind. The roar of the crowd wasn't supportive. It was vindictive. People clapped, yelled, and called him every unflattering name in the book, their anger echoing in the square. "Are you serious right now?" William twisted his head toward the officers flanking him. His tone bounced somewhere between indignation and panic. "This is ridiculous. You don't get it. It's just content, a joke. Do you guys not understand humor?" The officer closest to him didn't even blink. He just tightened his grip on William's arm, guiding him forward with deliberate calmness. Behind them, the second officer held onto William's confiscated camera, its red recording light still blinking like it was documenting the end of his career in real time. The crowd only grew louder, feeding off the tension. Strangers yelled from all directions. "This is what you get for disrespecting tradition." Finally, someone's holding these pranksters accountable. Bet he thought he was untouchable. William couldn't stop himself. He shouted over the noise, his voice cracking with desperation. "This is a misunderstanding. Come on, nobody got hurt. It was just a prank for my followers." But the officers were unmoved. They stayed silent, their faces unreadable, as if they were immune to his protests. If anything, the more William spoke, the more frustrated he became. "Seriously, guys, I didn't mean anything by it," he yelled again, trying to twist free from their grip. "This is crazy." Finally, the crowd parted slightly as they reached the patrol car. One of the officers opened the door and turned to face William directly for the first time. The look on his face was calm but firm, his voice even colder. "Your joke, as you call it, could have injured someone. You set a man's uniform on fire. That's not funny, it's assault. And now you're going to answer for it." The word assault hung in the air like a weight. William froze for a split second, the reality of the situation starting to seep in. He opened his mouth to argue but found no words that made sense. For once, his usual quick comebacks failed him. Before he could process it, the officer gently pushed him into the backseat of the car and shut the door. The sound of it slamming shut cut through the noise of the crowd, leaving him in an eerie, muffled silence. Inside the patrol car, the weight of everything started to hit him. The cheering crowd outside blurred into a distant hum as the vehicle pulled away. The quiet was suffocating, broken only by the faint crackle of the police radio. William stared out the window, watching the chaos he'd created disappear behind him. His heart pounded in his chest, but his mind was louder, replaying every moment from the last hour. He tried to rationalize it, tried to spin it into something less terrible. They're overreacting. This will blow over. People love drama, but they'll move on, right? It's just for clicks. Who takes this stuff seriously? But deep down, he knew better. The live stream had caught everything. Every step, every action, every flame. There was no escaping it. The same audience he'd built for years wasn't laughing anymore. He could still see the comments scrolling past in his mind. This guy's done for. This is next level stupid. Good luck explaining this in court, bro. The thought of court made his stomach twist. Court, charges, fines, maybe even jail time. And for what? A few seconds of shock value, a stupid, reckless stunt he hadn't even thought through? William leaned back against the hard plastic seat, his breathing shallow. He glanced at the officers in the front seat, but they weren't paying him any attention. He was just another case to them, another reckless tourist who thought the rules didn't apply. For the first time, he felt small. The weight of what he'd done wasn't just about the arrest. It was about how far he'd let himself go in the name of content. The endless chase for views, likes, and subscribers had finally caught up with him, and it wasn't pretty. As the car turned a corner, the gravity of the situation hit him like a brick wall. His channel might not survive this. His reputation was in tatters. And more than that, he couldn't shake the officer's words. That's not funny, it's assault. He closed his eyes and let out a shaky breath, the reality settling in. For a guy who built his life on making people laugh, he wasn't feeling very funny right now. In the silence of the patrol car, he muttered under his breath, almost to himself, "Not every joke's worth it. Guess I had to learn that the hard way." The car rolled on. The sound of the sirens now turned off, leaving behind the mess he'd created. For William, the lesson wasn't just about the stunt. It was about how easily things could spiral out of control when you didn't stop to think about the consequences. What would you have done in William's place? Share your thoughts in the comments. Has a joke ever gone too far for you or someone you know? Leave a like and join the discussion. This story highlights the importance of thinking about the impact of our actions,